All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you guys know how I get down. You know how we roll over here in the Move Swiftly world. Whatever your challenge is, whatever the obstacle is, whatever it is happening in your life that you feel is in the way of whatever goal you're trying to get to, we are here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. Today is one of the, and now I'm not gonna let me preference it before I actually say it. They're all rewarding. All of the people I've had on the show, I love them very much, but today is especially rewarding because we are speaking to a fellow Silver Spring Marylander. All right, you regular listeners know, born and raised in Silver Spring, that's my hometown. I'm currently living out here in Florida, but Silver Spring is where my roots are, where everything I know that I'm DMV through and through all day, every day. So today I have well, I did call him Pastor, but Mr. David Griffiths, who is going to really walk us through something that I am incredibly excited to hear about. Walk us through this concept of having a faith-based brand on the internet, having a faith-based message when you're putting your stuff out on the internet and making sure you're actually doing God's work, even though we do have these platforms and we do have this ability to speak to whoever we want and get out there however we want. We got to make sure we're doing it in a godly way. So all that being said, David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited and look forward to our discussion.
Yeah, so walk us through just your background, how you grew up, some of the things and what I've learned, especially given that I've been regularly going to church now, is that, it's never a popular decision, never an easy decision. One of the things I learned growing up is, finding religion or finding God, finding your faith is something that has to be working on the inside. So kind of walk us through those moments, as you came up where you realize, hey, God is gonna be the center and gonna be the make. He's just gonna give it all to God. Walk us through some of your background and stuff like that.
Mm. Okay, thank you. Well, I was born in Lincoln, Nebraska. My dad was somewhat of a trailblazer. He was the first African American at dot dot dot. So he was the first African American English professor at Union College
Hmm.
in Lincoln, Nebraska. Then we moved out to sunny Southern California, and he was chairman of the English department there, also a first. And then he was the first African American dean of the graduate school at Loma Linda University.
Right.
And then we moved out to Maryland, Silver Spring. So
Hmm.
at these different junctures, I'm being in environments where I'm often the only minority or one of few. And so it taught me to think of the world differently. My parents made sure that they didn't always share with me all of the negative experiences they had relating to race. And so it allowed me to view the world and the global community as a family, and it allowed me to not have some particular biases that I would have had I
Right.
known some of the things that were going on.
Hmm.
And so I really appreciate my parents doing that for me. So I was born in Nebraska. Second through seventh grade, I was in sunny Southern California.
Hmm.
My best friends out there were all Asian, interestingly enough. My two female best friends, one
Hmm.
was Filipino, one was Indian, and then my two best male friends were Chinese. And then when I came out here on the East Coast, then I had um, a lot more in terms of seeing a lot more people that looked like me in the
Right.
places that I was.
Hmm.
So that's something that I think on the positive side, it helps me to explore situations in a way that's very open and
Yeah.
embracing. Yeah. So I appreciate the fact that my dad always challenged me
Yes.
because he was, I guess he was valedictorian of his college class. He was never satisfied with what I did, and initially I was kind of salty about it, but
Yeah, I
he
have a
said something to me.
similar.
Yeah.
Dad, if you're listening, yes, he's talking about you too. You preaching to the choir on that one, boy. He's up my behind with every decision I've
Mm,
made.
mm.
So,
When I was a senior in high school, I sang at my graduation weekend. I wrote a song, I wrote a class song, And my dad would say things like, "Hey, son, keep working at it."
Hmm.
In my mind, I'm like, "I got a standing ovation. What do you mean, keep working at it?" You know? And he's like, he said, "Son, you're young now, and people are going to show you love to support you because they're excited for you."
Hmm.
He said, "When you get older, they're going to require something more of you."
Yeah.
And so I took that to heart. And
Right.
so I've been driven to be excellent because he pursued excellence, and then he always let me know, like,
Hmm.
"Okay, son, like this is cool, but you can do better."
Right.
And so I think, and one other situation. So my dad had a PhD in English, and so when I was in high school, I took AP English. Valerie Landis was our teacher at Tacoma Academy, and we had this project of analyzing the book, The Scarlet Letter.
Yes.
And so I wrote my analysis, and this particular project, like she just like slashed up everybody
Hmm.
except, and mind you, I'm gonna tell you, I had much smarter people than me in that class.
Hmm.
They all have gone on and demonstrated that in so many different ways. But in this particular instance, I had showed my dad what I had come up with,
Hmm.
and my dad went, "Oh, okay, let me take a look at this."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
And
then you
then,
can see in his own English background. Yeah, that's actually kind of the way. So when my sister bought her first house, my dad's an architect, small
ah,
business owner, architect. So he actually inspects houses. I remember when she bought her first house, it was like she involved. I mean, it says if you're listening, you probably mistakenly involved him in the process a little too much because he was on every move. Well, this vent doesn't do this, and this vent, so I know exactly what you mean.
yeah, man, that sounds interesting. Yeah, it's nice to hear the perspective from someone who,
Lived
like
it. Yeah, we
architecture,
lived it,
right?
man. I hear you. I hear you. So, but when you're talking about those school years, and we can talk a lot, but there is now when I look, I'm going to be 36 in January. I look back on my life and I'm so appreciative because I'm around so many, I teach now, and I'm around so many young kids that don't have that father figure in their life. I've heard of
Mm,
so many situations, countless situations, David, in which the young person doesn't have the father figure in his life. And it's like every time I hear it as frequently as I do, I thank my father just a little bit more. I'm so much more appreciative of him being up my behind, even though it was so difficult growing up, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. So as you transition from high school to now the work that you're doing now in your adulting, what were some of the key points or the key takeaways in which led you into, the ministry and the work you're doing now?
um, when I was in high school, we had an English teacher who decided he wanted to sponsor a youth ministry group, and it was called the Light Company. His name was Bruce Freeman.
Yes.
And from Bruce Freeman, I ended up becoming the student leader of the group, and I learned how to do small group fellowship. I learned how to facilitate groups getting to know one another through icebreaker activities,
Hmm.
and then even having a Bible study, but building it in terms of interesting group interactions. Maybe two people are going to do this, then those two people join with another two people, and
Right.
those four are going to do something, and then we're all going to come back together and share together.
Yes.
So that process of doing that from high school, it informs. I have a master's in vocal performance, and I'll direct community choirs, and I directed one at the Kennedy Center. And when I do my community choirs, I will do icebreaker activities so that the singers can get to know one another,
Hmm.
and so that we can explore that even in the same way that I learned from in high school.
Right.
And I think so. That's an example of me in person helping people create music together. But
Mhm.
online, when I was seeking to grow on social media, I
Right.
wasn't just happy to try to figure out content
Hmm.
that hooks people and a good call to action. I actually also created content just to build community. For
Hmm.
example, hey, don't scroll. I was curious. I'm trying to get to know my online family. I want to know what's your favorite kind of food. I'll go first. I love Korean food, especially kimbap. Let me know in the
Right.
comments what you like.
Right.
Something as simple as that, that might not be in the strategy book,
Mhm.
right? That, if you buy someone's course, but
Right.
actually doing those kinds of things, you end up having a small um, community of hyper engaged individuals.
Hmm.
Like, you know what they like to eat, they know what you like to eat, you know their favorite color, they know your favorite color. And these people will end up often showing up first when you put a post out.
Hmm.
And so you develop within this, you know, so if I have 1.5 million followers online, but there's like a core,
Hmm.
maybe it's 50 people between the different platforms
Exactly.
where, you know, we know each other more intimately because I didn't just try to, you know, like, oh, let me go viral and let me just try these different techniques. I
Yeah.
tried to actually build a community. So I think that's
Yeah.
something from my childhood that affects what I do today.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to educate me on this a lot because I, for years, did not like social media for a large extent. I still don't like it. If they didn't have automated AI and stuff where I could, batch my post from the weekend and move on from it, then I probably wouldn't post as frequently as a lot of people think I post frequently. But it's actually not me at all. I'll let that cat out the bag now. It's me batching a lot of this work. And the reason I was so turned off by it because I saw the type of stuff that goes viral. It's stuff that just turned me off. It like, the fighting and the constant negative comments, the constant back and forth. To me, that was just what social media was because it represented what the world actually likes to see. They like to see Jerry Springer and the constant back and forth. That's what pulls in, and that's not the work I'm about. I'm just curious how someone like you was even drawn to that world to even want to engage social media as heavily as you do, given that, your work is so faith-based. It's so much about, hey, I want to bring you guys into a relationship with God. I want to bring you guys into a relationship where it's God's gonna kind of be the Almighty.
Very, very good question.
Mhm.
Okay, so from one perspective, as a gospel recording artist, I was always told, hey, you know, you need to develop your audience. And so initially that was you need to get emails from people at concerts. And
Yeah.
then eventually
Yeah,
that
the
turned
mindset.
into
Yeah, because there's yeah, you're like an artist, you got to go get your gigs and you got to figure out how you're gonna get on stages.
yeah, and then that became, oh, you need to get people to follow you on social media. And then you need to on Facebook, you need to have a page.
Mhm.
And it's funny because on Facebook, when you created a page, it was cool until you realized that if you posted on the page, a very small percentage of the people actually would see it.
Yeah,
And you'd
actually.
have to pay Facebook
Yeah,
to have the people that you got to join your page to
exactly.
actually see what it is that you're posting.
And Zuckerberg has a setup, man. Zuckerberg, I cannot doubt it, my man. You hit something strong, and he's maintained it even when I was in college. He's maintained this thing for years. So, got to give you a shout out, so Zuckerberg, if you're
Yeah, man.
listening.
So, so my interest in being there was because um, I was told that this is where I need to be in order to make an impact. But here's the cool thing. Here's the cool thing. Um, okay. Yesterday I was watching a video and it was describing someone who's being really effective on LinkedIn
Hmm.
with their content creation game. And what he does, and let me say, I'm going to tell you what he does, and
Hmm.
let me say that it can be done in a way that's nasty and it can be done in a way that isn't so nasty,
Hmm.
even though I don't really do the technique. But let me tell you the technique. So what's important is you have to help people know who your enemy is. And if you have an enemy that they also find as an enemy, that
Right.
draws them to you.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a great technique for him to do it. So he might talk about another company that's a competitor
Hmm.
that does something and he'll champion the way that his is better and he'll poo poo what they're doing.
Hmm.
But he'll do it with very strong language. And so it creates controversy and it helps the stuff to, the algorithm recognizes it as stuff to send out to a lot of people because
Right.
a lot of people comment on it.
Right.
Now, there could be, because I see people who do it, there could be people who call out things that are evil
Hmm.
and have a similar response. So then you
Right.
can say, all right, well, as a person of faith, I can see how I could encourage someone to do that technique and it be something in line with my values.
Right.
But here's another side to consider. When you create content and it's something, let's say, that you share with your friends,
Hmm.
usually there's an emotional impact. So it could be shock at seeing, like right now, I can see I was I was on a Zoom or something, and on my phone,
Hmm.
um, there was some guy jumping from one building to another.
Hmm.
Um, Part of me, I get angry when I see that happen. Like, I know it's cool on the one hand, but on the other
Right.
hand, sometimes because I see, I know of people who mess themselves up doing that, right? And it
Yeah.
seems so unnecessary. But I have a strong emotional response when
Hmm.
I see that. You can create stuff, content that creates a strong emotional response,
Hmm.
but it doesn't have to be the negative one,
Yes.
right? And so if I, one of the first videos that I had that went viral,
Hmm.
I simply put my phone on a stand
Hmm.
and I sat down and I spoke to my phone as if the way that I wish someone would have spoken to me,
Exactly.
what
Right.
I needed.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, don't scroll. Don't quit.
Yeah.
Don't quit. And so I expounded on why it was
Hmm.
that you shouldn't quit. And my heartfelt words also had scripture interlaced with it.
Hmm.
And that was my first video that had over 1 million views.
Hmm.
What made it effective was it was authentic, it was from my heart,
Yes.
and it spoke to me, whether it was me that day or me 6 months, 12 months before. And
Hmm.
so people who could relate to that, they tuned into it.
Yes.
So it was effective and it went viral.
Yes.
We can create content that is impactful because it is authentic and it's emotional, but it doesn't always have to be the sensationalist things or the crazy things that also go viral. We
Yeah.
can create things that are not that, but still go viral.
Yes, and for you, especially for you folks listening out there, he said the exact word authenticity. All right, everybody, if you are authentic, and I'm telling you this because I know that a lot of times when folks, especially business owners, are trying to make a name for themselves, social media, you start to feel like you have to put on a facade. You start to feel like to make sure the camera's right, make sure like I gotta got a friend who, swears up and down like he's gonna start this live stream, but he wants to make sure this camera's ready, that camera's ready, all sorts of things that for like years now they've been telling me that they're gonna start this thing, and it's like, hey, at some point you just gotta turn on the camera, hit record, and just simply go. And when you're talking about business ownership, when you're talking entrepreneurship, people looking on the other side of the camera needs to understand or needs to feel like you're authentic. That is the only way that you're gonna take them to move action towards whatever action you're trying to take them through. It's through authenticity. Now, I will have to ask you this now because it's not going to come without challenges. All right. And we are actually recording this. It's the day, and I'll just even put out a current event. I don't even need your perspective. If you want to give it, then sure, feel free to. But the current event that's going on right now happened in New York where there was is it Neely? What's the guy's name?
I don't
The
know.
Neely, not well, long story short, there was a homeless kid who 2 years ago now, about a year and a half ago now, a homeless black kid who was
Wow.
you remember his name? It's Portney. I can't believe they've been saying his name all day. Anyway, it's going all over social media right now. And one of the things that my take on it, I actually just posted this, was the fact that the dad has come out. The dad has come out now and he's said something about how we live in a racist society and all that. And the people I listened to, the take that I had was, where was this dad when the kid was homeless? Now, that doesn't make me a racist. That doesn't make, but it can, if it's communicated in the wrong way, then you're going to rub some people the wrong way. You're gonna piss some people off. And I'm bringing that up, not necessarily to get your thoughts on it, but I'm bringing it up because the challenge when you're trying to communicate online is you have no control over the perspective of the person that's listening to you. So the question really is how do you respond to the folks that take what you said the wrong way and may leave these angry comments or may want to cancel you and all that kind of stuff? Because I personally have had to deal with that quite a bit myself.
I have diffused some,
Hmm.
yeah, but um, I don't find much positive from having a heated discussion. I haven't seen, uh, you know, positive outcomes.
Mhm.
So there are times when I feel that someone is saying something that's not true, and
Mhm.
that gets a strong response from me. I went to a conference a couple weeks ago, and the coach whose conference it was celebrating 10 years of her as a public speaker and as a life coach and the success that God has blessed her with. And so it was such an honor because I brought my business partner along with me, one of my business partners, and we were just sitting talking, and she actually came and sat and talked with us for many hours.
Mhm.
And in that discussion, he shared with her that I'd gotten someone who had said something very, um, they had negative feelings. And I initially was drawn into like, okay, so how am I going to respond to it?
Mhm.
And she was like, David, like, she's like,
Mhm.
delete it, block him, move
Uh-huh.
on.
Yeah.
Her perspective was, is
Yeah.
he's taking, like, we don't even need to talk about him, like, really, like,
Mhm.
he's already taken up too much space.
Yeah.
And so for me it's kind of sad. This is someone who's prayed with me every morning for months, and then all of a sudden he sees something and he's not sure. He like, well, just to me it was very unfortunate, but I
Mhm.
think her perspective was correct because it was sucking me out of this conference that I was at,
Yeah.
me actually doing what it is that I needed to do, getting from it what I needed to get,
Yeah.
and it really wasn't necessary even for me to pursue.
Yeah.
And so that is what I would encourage people to do more often than not. Not
Mhm.
even all the time that you need to block people, but if
Mhm.
people become problematic, there is that option.
Yes.
Um, the times there are people who will come on and say something,
Mhm.
and because I'll just go, oh, okay, well, thanks for your perspective.
Right.
And then oftentimes someone else, or maybe often someone else, but
Mhm.
maybe after that I'll say, did you understand dot dot dot? And many times they apologize because they just assumed something and they went south.
Right.
But the Bible talks about a soft answer turning away wrath. That's
Mhm.
what I believe. Either
Yes.
a soft answer, or sometimes it's best to keep moving.
Yeah, I've actually learned that the hard way. I understood that, there was some, especially during the election season. Oh my God, because I gave a lot of takes on both sides, but there are people who were extreme on one side that took what I said in a way that was, taking shots at their candidate. And I mean, just like talking about essays on certain comments that I would try to go back and forth with, and I had to learn the hard way on mine. You know what? I'm getting what I need to get out of this being born in Silver Spring, Maryland, having, been around so many politics growing up. I'm getting what I need to get from both candidates because I can see where people like this one, I can see where people like this one, I can see where this one doesn't. And I was growing in my business and my ability to publicly speak and address major issues. And I second everything he said for you guys who are listening is when you develop in this game for long enough, at some point you got to stop giving a I've been going to church lately, so I've stopped the swear word. So, but you got to stop giving an F. You really have to stop giving an F and focusing on your self-development and how you're going to grow and how you're going to get better, because that is ultimately where it is you need to be. That's all. It's so difficult to get there that if you lose focus even for just a moment, that can derail you for, weeks or even months. So, all that being said, I do want to be very respectful of your time. Can you just tell people a little bit about what's next? What do you have coming down the pipeline? What can they expect in the future? That you got a lot of stuff going on.
Um, I'm excited for the people that I'm getting to meet and collaborate with.
Mhm.
Um, and so I have something that will be coming out first quarter 2025, a challenge
Mhm.
that I'm developing with a new friend who's a podcast educator and a seasoned podcaster.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'll be sharing more about that. But
Yes.
the way that I love serving
Mhm.
the faith-based community, especially, is coaching, helping people figure out how to use social media to connect with those people that they want to serve.
Yes.
So we have a community called Content Creating Academy,
Mhm.
and I really like helping tech challenged individuals to figure out a simple process
Yeah.
that they can use to effectively use social media. And I'm a member of, I have a friend, let me shout him out, Monty Lands. Monty Lands
Mhm.
on IG, he has a great community that I'm a member of, where he has a lot of the cool trending ideas and shows you like how you could flip this and use it for your business.
Yeah.
That's really fun. What happened is a couple years ago when I started Content Creating Academy, I realized I have a lot of mature saints that need my help and a lot
Yeah.
of tech challenge people. And
Yes.
so they're not going to do all those cool things, right? They're not going to do all those things. But one of the people who I was studying at the time, Elise Dharma, she pointed out that 90% of what was working for her business was talking head videos.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do. And
Mhm.
I teach us a science if you want to learn
Yes.
what's working in your vertical and then how to adapt it for yourself.
Mhm.
I teach that. But the basic principle that I teach is a simplified version because for most of us, that's what we need. And I realized early on, hardly anyone wants to do what it took for me to have over 1 million followers. They
Right.
don't, they like the idea of it. They don't want to do the work.
It just happened. Right?
And then I started seeing, well, wait, there are people who are millionaires who are using a small audience to generate it. So they taught me something. Oh, wow.
Mhm.
So I mastered a skill set, which is good. I can help people with it, but I need also the next skill set of, oh, well, how do I create leads? And then how do I convert those leads into clients? So that after you get the attention of social media, then you need a process
Yeah,
to
problem.
also take some of those people and bring them closer to you as leads.
Right, because it is important to note as well that these are I hired a coach too. Shout out to Dre if you listen, but he calls them freeloaders. There are a ton of freeloaders, and their form of payment is to hit that like button and move on. That's their form of payment. So you obviously you can't pay your bills if you have too many of those in your world, and there's no process. So it's figured out who just hit the like button and who's actually gonna pull out their credit card and pay some money and have a receipt for what it is you're doing. So focus on those people. How can people get in touch with you if they want to hear more?
If you'd like to hear more, drop me an email at David at contentcreatingacademy.com. David at contentcreatingacademy.com. And of course, on social media, on Instagram, David the Digital Creator, David the Digital Creator. On Facebook at Orphan Helper, Orphan Helper. On YouTube at David Griffiths Music. And on TikTok at David Griffiths '07.
Right. And all of that will be included in the show notes as well, so you guys won't have to, bounce around and try to write all that down. So the final thing I do, David, to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You
Okay.
are back to being in seventh grade. You just walked into a classroom and you're the only black kid there, and you have a ton of, you have a ton of white classmates, and you're figuring out what to do. You don't know you don't know anyone. You're just back to that, pretend that that young man has come into the Zoom room. Give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Young David, my words of wisdom to you are framing is everything. Framing is everything. And it's worth it. The Word of God talks about uh, guarding your heart, for it is out of it is the wellspring. It's the place that everything comes from. Your frame of how you view things will affect the energy that you have towards doing things. So, as opposed to looking at circumstances and bemoaning the fact that it doesn't seem that they are working for you, they're actually working on you to become the you necessary to exist at the next level that God wants you to be at. So, frame things in terms of
Mm.
I get to do this. Frame things in terms of this thing is working on me so that I can be a better me. And by doing that and building momentum and keeping positive about your circumstances, you will be amazed at where it is that God takes you.
You absolutely will be. And that was heartfelt. And it goes back to what got brought up earlier on the show is that when you have an opportunity to have a really tough father, or you have, and it doesn't just have to be a father, anybody that's just tough on you in life and wants you to be better, the framing element to it, to showing the appreciation for that person is going to take you places that I'm telling you, I say this all the time. I close you guys out. Whatever it is you have, whatever goal you have, it'll be so small compared to what God got planned for you. You will be amazed, brother. Whatever you wanted, you tell God, and God's like, bro, look, I have so much more bigger things planned for you than that small dream you had. So just keep your faith in God, man. Appreciate your. So glad I kind of ran into you, and then I can stay in touch with you on social media because you're gonna be giving me some inspiration too. So all that being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.